Hello, and welcome to Germantown Municipal Television's special coverage of Election 2018. My name is Caroline Jones, and I am a student at Houston High School. Joining me is Scott Sanders, who is running for Germantown Alderman Position 1. Mr. Sanders and his family have resided in Germantown for 19 years, and he recently retired from the United States Marshal Service after a 32-year career. He joins us today to offer us some insight into his plans if he is elected as Alderman for the City of Germantown. First of all, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, to start off, could you give me a quick overview of your background?
Sure, be glad to. I've lived in Germantown for the last 20 years with my wife and 4 kids. My 2 oldest daughters are living out of state. I have a son. Our only son is in the military and the Army. He's serving in Kuwait right now. We're proud of him. And my youngest daughter is a junior here in Germantown schools.
So what compelled you to run for office?
Well, I retired from the Marshal Service so I could run for office. I've enjoyed being a public servant all my adult life. It's a rewarding career to have, and making a positive difference in the community. So I decided that after I retired that it was a good opportunity for me to seek a position as on the Board of Mayor and Alderman to try to influence the direction our city goes, to continue to serve the people, and try to make a difference to make our community safer and a better place to live.
All right, so what are your thoughts on the direction of growth in this city?
Lately, growth is booming. Business is booming in Germantown. Developers are wanting to come to Germantown. We don't have much land left, so we got to really look at how we're developing what's left in our city. I'm not a fan of smart growth, the high density and multi-use areas that we've been seeing. I don't like the buildings right out on the sidewalks and things like that that we've been seeing in Germantown. So I'd like to see that change a little bit. I think aldermen should look to our citizens to ask them how should our city be developed, what should it look like in 20 or 30 years from now, and they should champion that at City Hall on behalf of the citizens.
Okay, so do you believe that there is a balance between residential and new business in Germantown?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Germantown is landlocked. We're 20 square miles. About 17 of those miles are residential developments, and we only have about 3 miles of commercial development in Germantown. So if you look at it that way, many people would say no. In the last 15 years, most of our growth in Germantown has been residential. They build about 60, 65 homes roughly a year. We've seen a lot of new residential development over that period of time. But now it's shifted. We're starting to see commercial development come in, mixed use, high density developments. Look at your Traverse or the Thornwood development or the proposed projects that we've been reading and hearing about. So the balance is changing a little bit, but that might help that commercial side catch up to all the residential development we've had over the years.
So what do you hope to accomplish in your 4 years as alderman?
4 years will go by fast, but I do have a few things that I look forward to championing in Germantown. Number one for me, of course, being in federal law enforcement for the last 32 years is to make sure we have a safe community for our citizens to live in. We have top-notch police and fire departments in Germantown. I want to see them stay that way. I'd like to see us make sure they have the tools and equipment they need to keep us safe, pay them a good wage and good benefits to attract the best and brightest to come here. Our schools are also a great addition now that we have our own school system. So I want to see that we fully fund our schools, take care of the overcrowding issues that we're experiencing. We're currently building a new school. We're going to need to add on to Houston Middle So I want to see that that gets taken care of and funded. Also, the schools we inherited 5 years ago from Shelby County have a lot of deferred maintenance. I'd like to see us address that before we start or continue to spend money on some other things. Let's look at the deferred maintenance we have in our schools, and also look at the safety of our schools. They've made some improvements this year, but we need to make sure that we have a safe learning environment for our kids, so they don't have to worry about safety and they can focus on learning. So those are just a few things I would like to look at, but there's many others and that come to mind, but we'll just see how that goes.
Okay. What are your thoughts on taxes here in Germantown?
Taxes in Germantown, boy, there's a couple of ways you could look at that. Sales tax is booming in Germantown. I believe over the last several years, we've seen sales tax increasing. Looked at the last few months recently, and sales tax is coming in about 10% over what we've budgeted. Our property values are good in Germantown. They're staying high, which brings in property tax revenue for the city. As far as taxes go, though, we depend very heavily in Germantown on our property tax. The general fund revenues, probably 58 to 60% of those revenues come from property taxes. So I think we need to look at that in Germantown. We need to see if we can diversify our revenues and maybe look at some things that we can decrease the reliance on property tax. Maybe things that come to mind would be some grant opportunities, federal, state grants, or maybe even look to Nashville to some changes in legislation that we could bring some more revenue to the suburbs here in Germantown particularly, so we can reduce our reliance on our property tax.
Okay. So as you have talked to citizens of Germantown, what issues have they been the most concerned about?
The number one thing, I think, when I'm knocking doors campaigning are apartments.
Yeah.
People in Germantown are concerned about apartment developments. High density is another one. So that's the biggest issue that I've been hearing while I'm out. People aren't opposed to multifamily, so to speak. They tell me they prefer condominiums, brownstones, townhouses, patio homes, things like that. But when you mention apartments, that concerns them, because I think they feel like high-density developments with apartments are going to cause overcrowding in our schools. They're going to tax our police and fire resources and cause just traffic and congestion in Germantown. So that's probably the number one thing.
So as alderman, how involved would you plan to be with the Germantown Municipal Board of Education?
The aldermen are the funding body for the Board of Education, so I would like to work very closely with our Board of Education. I'd like to see regular dialogue. I'd like to see them have regular meetings with each other, so the board could convey to the aldermen what their needs are going to be out 5, 10, 15 years, so they can plan what the budget needs to be. What does the board need from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen as far as funding? What are their long-range goals as far as facilities or salaries, benefits, or any funding that they would be needing? So I would hope to work very closely with them, have good dialogue so we can plan for the future. But certainly I wouldn't expect that a Board of Mayor and Aldermen would be directing the Board of Education in any issues that they have or oversee.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's all the time we have for this interview. I'd like to thank my guest, Scott Sanders, who is running for Germantown Alderman Position 1. If you'd like to watch more of our election coverage, please follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Germantown Municipal Television. We hope you will join us on Election Day for our live exit polling numbers for the Germantown Mayor, Alderman, and Board of Education campaigns. You can watch us on Comcast Channel 17, AT&T Universe Channel 99, and on our YouTube page. We'll be back with more interviews from Germantown Alderman candidates.